I am here with the wonderful Douglas Kennedy. And Douglas, you've had a really busy Listowel Writers Week.
Yes, I've been teaching the advanced novel workshop, and at the same time I lectured, and I was dealing with 14 students and their work, which was very interesting. I sort of have a rule, actually. I've never done a workshop before, but I sort of made a rule at the beginning, which is I was going to, in discussing their work, not function as a critic, but more as an editor. Having been on the other side of the editorial process for most of my professional life as a novelist, I thought it would be interesting for me to function as an editor and just spark ideas. I don't think writing is something that can be taught, but you can talk about it, and you can advise, and you can enlighten about the process. It's, I've often said there are two ways to learn how to write. You have to read, and read extensively. As T.S. Eliot said, immature poets imitate, mature poets steal. But also you have to write. And I learned how to write by essentially doing it day in and day out over many, many years. And I'm still learning, 17 books on.
Yeah, that's quite an achievement. And did you learn anything, while you were editing that maybe will help with your writing now moving forward, acting as an editor for the group?
I think I tend to free associate a lot in my head, which makes me a little spacey if I'm on my own. But I was doing a lot of that with them, with ideas. What I was trying to also explain, I think frankly with fiction, one of the key things is structure. And structure is something you have to find, and every novel has its own kind of distinctive architecture. And how you create that architecture is interesting. There are people who will plan out a book brick by brick by brick. That to me seems very dreary. I have a genuine idea where maybe the first quarter of it will go, up until possibly a moment when things change. And all fiction in one way or another is about a problem. You can't write a novel where there isn't a central dilemma. So I was talking structurally about that. What was interesting to me with a lot of these writers is I would sort of focus in on maybe a central character or even a secondary character, and I say, isn't that what it's more about here? And kind of provoke them in that way, and then talk about structurally how you might proceed from here. But it's very true. I remember at the start of my career, I wrote plays. I had a few of them done. I had a play done at the Peacock in Dublin. This was after I stopped running it, so it wasn't that nepotistic. And the play got terrible reviews and played to a handful of agoraphobics and closed. And I was sort of shamed in public. But it pushed me in a different direction. I started thinking about writing narrative, and I actually wrote 3 travel books, moved to London, funded my book habit with journalism at places like the Times and the Sunday Times and the New Statesman, which was wonderful. That was back when London still had a sort of wondrous journalistic world. It still exists, but it's so denuded now by the internet and everything else. And fundamentally, fiction was something I came to late at the end of my 30s. And I just finished my 12th novel, and as I said to them, every time I do this, there is always a critical moment of crisis during the book, usually somewhere around the end of the exposition, and I always manage to solve it and keep going. But it doesn't get easier, but it's always interesting.
And I'm sure they must have found that maybe helpful, that somebody who's written so many books and explored so many different genres in so many different countries, that you equally have a crisis during the creative process, that kind of must have given them a bit of hope.
I would hope so. I think I've often said we read to understand that we're not alone, but I think also that was something I was trying to convey to them as well. I know these problems, and that if you write, doubt is your neighbor. And how you cope with doubt is going to determine quite a bit. You have to have talent, but you also, writing is also, it's an art, but it's also a métier at the same time. It is a craft. And you have to keep doing it to get better at it. And also, my grandfather, this is the maternal grandfather, the Jewish grandfather, who was a jeweler in the Diamond District of Manhattan, once gave me a fantastic piece of advice. This was even before I had become a novelist. I mean, he was long gone by then. But it was just a sort of a general world advice. And he said, never, never fall in love with the aroma of your own perfume.
Wow, that is excellent
That's not
advice.
bad.
Many layers also.
Absolutely.
So have you enjoyed your Listowel experience? You said that you worked in the Peacock. Obviously you had that connection, and you seem to have a connection with Ireland.
I mean, I lived here for 11 years. I was also before that at Trinity. I'm a dual citizen. I have an American and an Irish passport. And I was married to someone here for quite a few years. That's in the past now. I have a very, very strong association with this country. I did begin to live in London in '88 and then starting to live in Paris, and now I still kind of commute between there and the States. I went home eventually. It only took about 33 years, but I did it. I think your country is like your family. It's the perpetual argument. And I said that, to actually Hugo Hamilton some years ago at Listowel. I just said, Ireland meant an enormous amount to me, but it wasn't in the end my argument. America was. And so I went back. But, I mean, this is a magical town. It's a wonderful place. I think also what always strikes me when I come back to Ireland as well is, and we're talking about a world where intelligence is being so radically devalued, it remains a profoundly literate country and a place where the written word counts so much. I live part of the time in Paris, and France is probably one of the only other countries I know where actually, writers are venerated and treated with respect. It's been a great 4 days, and of course I'm a little bleary-eyed for reasons that are beyond me. I have no idea why.
Yeah, I wonder why that
I
could
don't
be.
know. How could that happen,
Thank you so much.
Thank
And
you
we're
very
delighted that you talked with us, and enjoy the rest of Listowel Writers Week.
Well, thank you very
Douglas
much.
Kennedy.